Hello, Canucks fans. Welcome back to another episode of Canucks Conversation, brought to you by Bet365. My name is Dave Woodrelli. I'm joined by Harmon Dial, and we're here to talk about the Vancouver Canucks, as we do every day on this show. But first, I want to shout out our Super Chat charity partner this season, the BC Mental Health Foundation. If you want to make sure your question or comment gets on the show, hit us with a Super Chat. Proceeds from our Super Chat will go to the BC Mental Health Foundation, changing the face of mental health and addiction by supporting breakthroughs in care, public understanding, research, and knowledge exchange. All right, Harm, where do you want to start here? Because there's a lot going on. It feels like where there's a lot of different conversations in the market right now. There's talk of who are they going to move to free up cap space? There's talk of what are they going to do ahead of next season? Is it going to be a player traded away, as I just said? Or are they going to be done? Like, are they just going to go into the season with the team they have on paper? Because you look at it on paper, and we're going to do a line combos episode, I'm sure, at some point. It's usually something we do in the offseason. They have a set lineup. Like, this team right now could ice a competitive, well, they could ice a team. And they could ice a competitive team. I think they have a really good defense, and they have a really good goaltending tandem. So, yeah, they could ice a competitive team right now. They don't need to do anything. My question to you, and the big question on today's show, are they done? Are they going to do anything else?
I'm sure their preference as of now is to add that center that they're still looking for. Maybe it's not a top two guy, but it can be at least you insurance at, let's say, the 3C role, where, again, I'm sure their worry is they're one bad Filipino hit away from Teddy Bluger or Ratu being in that spot. And you don't want to be in that position for weeks at a time if you've got ambitions on a playoff spot. And that's where Pia Suter was such a valuable security net for them, right? Where first it was the JT Miller leave and then him getting traded that sort of left a top six hole. And then at certain points of the season, Pettersson was dealing with injury. Between Miller and Pettersson, there was always somebody. And then Hedl, even at the end of the season when he got hurt, the Canucks never had their top two centers available the entire year. And that's where Suter was so valuable as, okay, he could step up the lineup. Now the Canucks obviously don't have him anymore. And so can somebody competently fill in those shoes? Unless Ratu takes a huge step forward, the answer is probably not. And yet, having said all that, they need to A, clear cap space before they can go out and add anybody. And then B, who is that center who's available? Because let's remember, there's so many teams that were hoping to add a center that haven't been able to, right? Look at a team like the Montreal Canadiens. They got other business done. They made some terrific moves. I love the Dobson pickup, love Zach Balduke, but going into the summer, their biggest priority was, all right, second line center behind Nick Suzuki. They haven't been able to check that box off. So even if somebody does shake loose on the trade market, there's no guarantee whether it's a second line guy, whether it's a third line guy, even if it's a depth center, there's no guarantee that the Canucks win the sweepstakes for that player because so many teams are looking for help down the middle. So I guess to sum it up, I'm sure if you were to ask Patrick Allvin, his preference would be to still add and for them to not be done. But we'll see if that's realistically feasible based on the current market dynamics that are at play.
Can I give you a take real quick?
Yeah.
I think the plan changed on the Canucks. And put it this way, okay? If they knew they were going to sign Brock Besser, I don't think they traded for Evander Kane. Do you think I'm crazy for saying that?
I agree with you there.
And I think they re-signed Pia Suter as well. I think if they know they're getting Brock Besser, they happily re-signed Pia Suter at what would it come in at 2 years, $4.125 million with the St. Louis Blues. I think the Canucks happily signed that contract, and I don't think they trade for Evander Kane. Now, this isn't to say, oh my gosh, what a haha, look at those idiots. This is never going to work out now. Now you have Kane and Besser. Season's cooked. That's not what I'm saying. I just think that it is worth mentioning. I'm pretty sure the plan changed a little bit where they thought that Kane was more Besser insurance because we talked about that. And hey, it wasn't just them. We were doing our offseason planning and we were talking about, okay, well, how do you replace Brock Besser? The answer is Brock Besser. They went out and re-signed Brock Besser. There was reporting from Dollywall that Christian Dvorak was someone that they really wanted. Obviously, he got a big contract. 1 year, but a high cap hit. Sorry?
Bullet dodged, I would say.
Yes. I mean, yes. We talked about Dvorak as being a guy to stay away from when we were doing our UFA previews.
He's not a bad player, but he's a defensive-minded 3C. I'd rather take Pia Suter.
For
To
sure.
be honest, I think he's got more offensive upside. The broader point that I think you're trying to make is re-signing Besser wasn't plan A.
No.
And we know that based off, Dollywell's reports and the fact that if it was your plan A, you would have gotten it done way earlier than risking it until the July 1 market actually opened. And I think it's just the sequencing of events, right? I'm sure the Canucks, and we were talking about it too at the end of the season, where with the cap space and assets they have, this club should be aiming higher ambition-wise in terms of who they're targeting and really trying to meaningfully bolster this offensive attack, right? Running it back in terms of the forward group specifically was not plan A for Canucks management. It wasn't plan A for us. We were saying as well, they should aim higher with the cap space that they have. But then the Canucks and many other buyers around the NHL have realized that it's way harder to acquire top of the lineup difference makers than anybody could have forecasted. And so teams have had to pivot, including the Canucks. And that sort of through the timing and sync of like, you have to make decisions in real time when there's uncertainty. So I can understand why they sort of first acquired Kane with the thought process that, okay, we're possibly going to lose Besser. But then as they continue to try and make calls, probably realize that they can't land the targets that they want, circled back to Besser, and then now they didn't have cap space to keep Suter when they need a center down the middle.
I think they're not going to make this trade this offseason. I don't think they're going to move anything significant. Let's put it this way, okay? If you're talking about trading Teddy Bluger, you're talking about trading Dakota Joshua, I think the Canucks are going to have a tough time getting surplus value for those players. And when you yourselves paid a draft pick to get Evander Kane, when you see teams around the league, the Marchment deal comes to mind, a third and a fourth Mason Marchment went for. When you see those kind of deals happening, you don't want to be the team that had to attach an asset to a contract. And with Dakota Joshua, I would say if a team's going to acquire Dakota Joshua, it's probably going to cost the Canucks something to get a team to take on that contract. And at that point, I would say roll the dice with Joshua having a bounce back year. Now, I'm a big Dakota Joshua fan, obviously. Talked about it toward the end of the year. I thought he was starting to come on. I think he's going to have a really big season next season. I think the value that you could get from Dakota Joshua next season in your lineup is just going to trump what you're able to get for him right now on the trade market. And then you're going to have to give up more assets to bring in that center. Like they're not going to sign anybody at this point, right? Like it's going to be a trade that you make. So then you're going to give up more assets. So you're going to give up assets to get off of Dakota Joshua's money. Then you're going to give up assets to get better at center. I would say just wait. And maybe I'm crazy for that, but I would just wait. I would roll the dice with Joshua. I would keep Dakota Joshua, and I would just wait for during the season. Make a trade in season if this team's play warrants it. And let's put it this way, Harm. Let's say a key contributor to the Canucks gets a decently long-term injury. Long-term in the sense of in the season, they missed 2-3 months, right? I'm not going to say names. Knock on wood. A key contributor to this team that is going to result in the team losing a lot of games. Well, you've already given up your assets. You already blew your load in the offseason. Now you don't have anything to do in season. Now you can't draft in 2026 because you parted ways with that first-round pick. I said it on the last show as well. That 23-24 team got the rental in Elias Lindholm and got Nikita Zadorov, more so Lindholm, got the big rental at the deadline in Elias Lindholm. I know it didn't work out super well, but they got that rental because they were first in the league when that trade was made. Now, I'm not saying this year to get center help, this team needs to be first in their league, but come on. If they're, by American Thanksgiving, if they're fifth or sixth in the Pacific, nobody's going to be saying, oh, make a trade. And I'm sorry, but do we really think a trade right now where you're offloading Dakota Joshua and you bring in another second-line center, do we really think that that's going to put this team over the hump where it's like, oh, this is a bona fide contender? No, I think right now this team is a fringe playoff team, so let them play the first couple months of the season and then see if you want to do your work. We know Jim Rutherford doesn't mind doing his work early. Let them play with the team that they have right now. I'm not rushing to make moves that are going to cost this team long term. I think they actually did a really good job in free agency of the Garland extension is a good one on paper. The Besser one's a really good extension as well. Demko, yeah, the money's maybe too high, but they kept Thatcher Demko. Like that's what they set out to do. That's what mattered for this team, and they got it done. They didn't move off of And they didn't sign a bad contract, I don't think. You might quibble with the Demko one, whatever, but they didn't go out, sign a panic contract. They didn't sign Christian Dvorak. And I think this team should just kind of sit back, and these players, the way they're talking, all this, oh, well, we never got a full year with this defense group. Okay, let's see what you can do with a month of the defense group, 2 months of the defense group. The forwards all know they need to be better. I'm just not sitting here panicking and saying, oh my gosh, they cannot start the season with this team. I think this team is fine to start the season. They're a fine team. Like I think they're a bubble team right now on paper.
Yeah, that's fair. I would have been open to the idea of shipping out Joshua for, let's say, neutral value, where you're not probably gaining anything outside of the cap space if that had allowed you the opportunity to re-sign Suter, because Suter, middle six center, no acquisition cost, right?
Yeah.
That's the key there, is bringing in that player that can play down the middle anywhere in your top 9 on a really, I think, reasonable contract, all things considered. 4.1 for 2 years to St. Louis. I think that's great value for the Blues. I would have been open to the idea of shipping out Joshua for something like that, but that's the key, is that would have been such a layup in terms of re-signing Suter at that price, which was lower than what we were sort of forecasting. But now you're at a point where there isn't that sort of slam dunk center available right now, and you are probably best off just hanging on to him unless that perfect opportunity somehow does emerge.
Rajcraft in the chat asking about Jack Roslovic. No contract for him yet. 28-year-old center, obviously coming off a $2.8 million deal. He is not signed. It is July 3rd as we record this. Could Jack Roslovic be the next Pius Suter? The guy who gets forgotten, the guy who they sign for very cheap. Could that be who this is?
Maybe. Roslovic's not bad, but he's an inconsistent player. He's probably more reliable on the wing than he is at center. He was a natural center coming up, but defensively, I just don't know if this coaching staff is going to be able to trust him there full time. He's interesting because he has flashes where, with the speed, with his playmaking ability, he'll go on heaters where you look at him and go, oh, this guy's top 6 potential, but then he'll go inconsistent for long stretches. He can be turnover prone when he isn't playing well. He's below average defensively, especially at the center ice position. And so I sort of look at him as a third line offense first, like put him in a sheltered role and he can help you out. And unless you're confident that he's a full-time center for you, I don't think he's like, I'm not rushing to trade away a contract or two just to bring in Roslovic, especially because I don't think, he may end up signing for a little bit cheaper than forecasted, but he's still coming off, what was it, 22-goal season? Mm-hmm. He's not going to sign for like $1 million.
No. And that's where I come back to. I would not trade Dakota Joshua. There's also the factor that Connor Garland. Okay, like here, let's go over this right now, and we're gonna do a whole show on it. How are the Canucks gonna win games, Harm? They're obviously gonna win the Quinn Hughes minutes, right? But can they do that with a 5-man unit that doesn't also feature Elias Pettersson? Can they get a bounce back from Elias Pettersson? So much so that whoever Elias Pettersson's playing with on the defensive end, whether that be the Pettersson-Myers pairing or whoever, whether you split up Hronek, whatever it is, can they win those minutes too? Because that's going to be a recipe for winning games. Because let's not forget, the way this team was playing before, the only way they were winning the JT Miller minutes for a lot of last season was if Quinn Hughes was on the ice, and then Pettersson line kind of keeping them afloat. But we obviously know it was a down year for Elias Pettersson. He really wasn't doing that much. Connor Garland's an interesting aspect of all of this, because if you can get him back on a third line, driving a third line with Dakota Joshua, Teddy Bluger, Atu Ratu, whoever it is, centering that line, like Garland's the straw that stirs the drink on that third line. So can you get a first line that goes out with Quinn Hughes, then a second line that doesn't go out with Quinn Hughes, and then have a third line where Garland's driving play, and then a fourth line featuring Kiefer Sherwood on it, or whatever else you have back there that you'd like. Like, I think that's a fine lineup, and that's a fine way to win games. Like, that's a recipe for success. Now, it also hinges on an Elias Pettersson bounce back, and that first forward line not having Pettersson on it, being able to sufficiently spend more time in the offensive zone just because they're playing with Quinn Hughes. There's a lot of ifs there, but it's possible.
The problem is, I think they don't have enough high and top six wingers who drive play to where you can afford to have Garland on your third line, right? You have enough sort of like scoring complementary wingers, but you would need Höglander to be like full-time
staple to PD,
staple to PD, driving play, being what he was in the second half to afford to have Garland on your third line. Because I've talked about this before. DeBrusk, Besser, Kane, they can all play in a top six wing role, but they're all complementary. They're not going to drive a line. They're all net front, and Kane and Besser especially are slow. So you need a speedy sort of spark plug guy on at least one of the opposite wings, whether it's on the first line with PD or on that second line. And if it isn't, if Höglander can't do that job, then it is probably going to have to be Garland bumping up into that top six role, which probably isn't your first preference because Garland can be an elite third liner. But this is the kind of reality they're in where I just don't know if they have enough sort of like true top of the lineup carrying play and can unlock the most out of some of their other wingers. All
right, let's get to our poll question. Our poll question is brought to you by our friends at Pacific Toyota Dealers, who want to tell you about the 100% electric Toyota BZ4X, an SUV packed with plenty of space. The BZ4X can handle any terrain, can take you from the city to the slopes. It's backed by the peace of mind that comes with knowing you're driving a Toyota, and if you're driving a BZ4X, you get access to HOV lanes, even if you're driving alone. When you choose the BZ4X, you can get a $5,000 incentive, and now you can finance the 2025 BZ4X LE all-wheel drive from 0.99% APR for 36 months. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. All right, our poll question today: are the Canucks done? Will the Canucks sign or trade another significant player? We set the cap hit at over $1.5 million before training camp begins. If so, who? 73.6% of voters say yes. 26.4% say no. Some interesting replies to this tweet as well. It was... Where'd it go? Oh, yeah. Moving out Archer Shilovs. Could that be something this team does? Jim Rutherford did an interview on, I think it was TSN. I'm not sure where he did it. Jim Rutherford did an interview yesterday, and he kind of alluded to the idea of trading a goaltender, and obviously Archer Shilov's name is the one that came up. We'll see this one as well. This person said, I hope not. In December, there will be a fire sale as a bunch of teams didn't stay competitive, and we might see the McKenna sweepstakes in graphs. This is what I'm saying. Everybody wants to be competitive, but like by December, there's going to be a clear, oh, shoot, okay, we're not where we wanted to be just yet. And I will say this as well. Like the Pacific Division teams got better. Like Anaheim adding Mikael Granlund, I didn't want the Canucks to sign that contract. I was very, very clear about that. Anaheim just got better. Like Anaheim got better. The Sharks are going to take a step this year. And I'm not saying, oh, this is going to make, they're going to make the playoffs ahead of the Canucks. No, but they are going to be a tougher out for a team that's trying to get points. Like it's not going to be, you look at the schedule and say, oh, good, the Canucks are playing the Ducks, they're playing the Sharks. Well, it might be, but
I still think it is.
It probably will be, but not to the same extent that it was last year. Like they're trying to take a step. They're going to be a better team than they were last year. Like realistically, who in the Pacific Division got worse? Maybe the LA Kings. Maybe.
I'm actually going to disagree on both points you made there.
Ahead.
First of all, the idea that in December a bunch of teams will be falling out, to some extent, yes. But the problem is so many teams are in the same position as the Canucks where they weren't able to get their offseason shopping done. And so everybody's just internally kind of kicking the can down the road that, we'll fix this in season.
Sure.
And I actually floated this by an agent. I was having a conversation with him. This is an agent that's worked in an NHL front office before. And I sort of floated the idea that, okay, there's a supply crunch right now in terms of talented players. A lot of teams are probably in a position where they're going to have to add mid-season. Do you think that, a few months of the season when some teams fall out of it, that the supply crunch is going to ease significantly? And his answer was it'll ease a bit, but he doesn't think it'll be significant because the problem is, like, especially in a league where there's still a loser point available, teams don't truly fall out of it until so close to the deadline. And there are still going to be so many teams that have cap space, so many teams that have assets, that it's still going to be a pretty
competitive market, especially at a premium position like center. If you're chasing a 2C, there's so many teams that are still going to be looking for a 2C that it's going to help, but it's not necessarily going to be, oh, look at how much easier it is, and there's so much less competition. I still think it's going to be fairly competitive mid-season to add players. And then secondly, the idea of the Pacific getting better, I actually think all things considered, it worked out pretty well for the Canucks because Vegas improved a ton, but we already looked at Vegas as a playoff lock. Let's be honest, whether they got Mitch Marner or not, they were going to be a playoff lock. So that's more, all right, if the Canucks make the playoffs and you're trying to go deep in the playoffs, that's more of an obstacle for if you get to the playoffs. Getting through Vegas is going to be tougher. LA taking a step back, in my opinion, is a big win for the Canucks because LA, I think previously we would have looked at as a playoff lock. I don't know if we can look at them as a playoff lock anymore.
I'm with you there.
They lost out on the Marner sweepstakes. They lost Gavrikov, who was arguably their best all-around defenseman. Drew Doughty is going to turn 36 in December and is coming off a year where he missed more than half the season because of an ankle injury and clearly slowed down both offensively and defensively. He can't single-handedly play 25, 26 minutes a night and carry that blue line all by himself anymore. They traded away Jordan Spence, who was a good mobile third-pair defenseman, because they went, oh, he's small, and Brent Clark is also an offense-first guy, so we can't integrate both of them, which I think is a mistake. Then they went out and signed Ceci and Dumoulin to add to Edmondson, and now you've got a blue line that is slow and can't really move the puck. So you add that to, all right, Anaheim got better, but I'll be honest, they didn't take the steps forward that I thought that they were going to be able to do, considering all the cap space that they had. Like, I thought they might land in Ehlers. I thought they were, a dark horse for Marner potentially. And to bring in Granlund and Kreider, it doesn't inspire a lot of confidence. Now, they could have internal guys take a step forward with Quenneville. The coaching change is something to keep an eye on. And so maybe that unlocks huge years from Leo Carlson, McTavish, Gauthier. But that team still has holes, and they were carried to some extent by goaltending last year. So I still rate the Canucks higher than the Ducks by a fair bit.
Very fair. They're still going to be a tough out, though. They're still going to be a tougher out than they were in past years. Like, let's be honest. These were like the three worst teams in the league last year. They're in the conversation for worst team in the league, and the Canucks have had them in their division. I don't know if that's going to be the case this year. Like, there's obviously going to be
San Jose's still going to be bad.
San Jose's still going to be bad for sure. But worst in the league? Do you think San Jose finishes 32nd? I still think Chicago's the one that's going to finish dead last.
Well, I would still expect San Jose to be bottom three. Or at least at the bare minimum bottom five.
I know this isn't season preview, but Sabres, Bruins, we thinking they help round out the bottom five?
Well, Bruins might not, because Swayman came off an awful year. 890 something save percentage. Do you think he's going to have another year where he has an 890 something save percentage? And
I hope not, for Boston's sake.
Also, I wonder what is going on with Hampus Lindholm, because he is top pair caliber defenseman. He only played, 19 games this year, 17 games. If he's healthy, that helps a ton. McAvoy missed half the year. So I don't know if Boston's still going to be a bad team, but I don't know if they're immediately going to fall to they're a bottom three team in the league necessarily.
We got a super chat here. It's from Web.3. He said, do you like that the Canucks signed Kane over Suter? I explained this at the top of the show as well. The plans changed, right? Like the plans changed. I don't think they trade for Kane if they end up signing Brock Besser. I don't think they knew they were going to get Brock Besser. Actually, I know they didn't know they were going to get Brock Besser. Brock Besser met with the media on Wednesday morning and talked about kind of the details behind that. It was a last-minute call from Patrick Allvin to Brock Besser's agent. The plan changed. The plan definitely changed. So, yeah, I mean, in vacuum, no, I don't. I think it'd be great to have Pius Suter over Evander Kane, but I like the Kane trade when it happened, and I'm going to stand by that. I'm going to say I think people are sleeping a little bit on what Evander Kane's going to be able to do with this team.
One point that I want to make just broadly about taking a step back, looking at the work the Canucks have done this offseason, I think two things are true at the same time. A, there are reasons for optimism for why they could make the playoffs, 100%, right? I see a path where if Pettersson bounces back, and if Demko stays healthy, they can make the postseason. I also think at the same time, big picture, we should acknowledge that they haven't made enough progress toward the ultimate goal of contending for a cup, right? I was really thinking about this yesterday, just zooming out. We're about to enter Quinn Hughes' 7th full NHL season, Petey's 8th NHL season, Brock's 9th, Demko's 7th. The core isn't young anymore. Next season, all of the players I mentioned are going to be in the age 26 to 30 window. That's when you're already supposed to be contending for a cup, especially because it's not like the first year that you're a cup contender, you automatically win. It usually takes some failures, and this core has only really had one of them in 2024 when they made round 2, game 7 against Edmonton. Plus, this team's only made the playoffs twice in the last 10 years. So given all the pain that this franchise has endured for the last decade, the fact that your core is smack in the middle of its prime rather than being young at this point now, you should have already had a bona fide Stanley Cup contender built. Whereas I look at the Canucks now and they're a middle of the pack team, right? Whether they make the playoffs, whether they don't, I still think they're far away from that, Panthers, Oilers, Stars, Canes tier of cup contenders, and especially offensively, right? We can talk about, the blue line is a strength, the goaltending on paper is a strength, but you need a prolific elite offense to win. I mean, people will point out, Bobrovsky was great for Florida and whatnot. They averaged, look at how many goals a game they averaged. They were averaging like 3-4 goals a game in the playoffs. And you look at the Canucks under the hood this past season, they were 31st in 5-on-5 shots generated offensively, 30th for scoring chances, and 24th for goals for. And people will say, well, they revamped the decor, they can move the puck better, and that should help. But you also, because you lost a 100-point, 90 to 100-point player in JT Miller, the overall offensive attack didn't improve a whole lot. Like I was looking at the 5-on-5 offensive numbers for the Canucks following the post-Miller trade. 28th in shots, 19th in expected goals, and 27th in actual goals for. And now you have an offseason where it's essentially Suter out, Kane in. You didn't really improve. It's mostly a wash.
Hang on. Let's not forget post-Miller trade, Quinn Hughes missed a lot of time. That's a really important part of the story, right?
Fair, but I don't think
also,
that alone.
Petey sucked all year.
Yeah, but do we know that do we know for sure that he's going to be an 80-point, 90-point guy?
Of course not, Harman.
That's my point, right?
That's what we're here to talk about, is that everything hinges on Elias Pettersson bounce back. Everything we're talking about doesn't matter if Elias Pettersson's just eating Cheetos right now and is like, you know what? I don't think I'm going to come into camp in shape. I don't think I really care about this winning
point
thing.
I'm just trying to make is, I see the pathway for them absolutely making the playoffs, being a decent team, but just bigger picture. Again, it's been a whole decade of pain.
You're right.
And we're looking at a team that there should not be qualifiers for if this and this happens, they'll make the playoffs. Like they should be a playoff lock this deep into whether you want to call it a rebuild or a retool. It's actually kind of insane that we're having to throw out qualifiers that Pettersson has to bounce back and Demko has to stay healthy. The progression should be to the point where it's like they're a playoff lock, and we're talking about if Pettersson bounces back and if Demko stays healthy, they're an elite team, not they're a good team.
Question from Stephen Wong. We're asking a career 3C in Philip Hedl to be our 2C and a player who played 33 games last year in Ratu to be our full-time 3C. Are we okay with this?
Well, this is what you sort of mentioned earlier, right? Is if they're a good team, they're going to have to add. Yeah. Right. If you start the season well, and you think that you're going to make the playoffs, you're going to need to add because you go into the playoffs with Pettersson, Hedl, Ratu, Blucher down the middle, you're probably going to get crushed in the playoffs. So they'll need to add if they start off well. But like you said, I don't think it's necessarily disastrous if they start the year with the center group. It's more you're just going to have to kind of play it by ear, assess where your team's at, and then try and make a move later down the road if the group shows that they're worth making an investment in.
All right, just ahead of Family Feud, I want to tell everybody about our friends over at Greta. By now, you know Greta's a great spot to watch the big game, but did you know it's an even better spot for your upcoming party or event? If you need a venue for a team building or summer social event, check out Greta. They've got the street food menu, they've got the arcade, and of course, they've got the bar. It's always a fun time with plenty of options. Make it your spot for your next event. For more info and to book your event, go to gretabar.com. Greta Bar, YVR, 50 West Cordova Street is the address. Let the games begin. New Family Feud survey is out, folks. Make sure you fill it out, but we got to answer some questions from last week's. Back in the hosting chair, take it away, technical producer Jacob Lazar.
Hello again. It's good to be back. It was fun to play for those few weeks. Harm and I crushed it. 3-0. 3-0, 2-0. I don't know. I kind of lost track of how many times.
I think it's 3.
3? Yeah. But yes, it's good to be back in a more familiar setting. I'm your man, Jacob Lazar. It's time for another edition of Canucks Conversation, Family Feud. All right, guys. I mean, Quads, you gotta work with Harm here. He's on a winning streak. All right. You can't let him down. I think you guys will be just fine. It's a pretty fun survey this week. Lots of interesting answers. And, after a bit of time off, I was able to come up with some creative questions. Those juices were flowing a little bit. I'll remind those who are new, we're going to play Fast Money Family Feud. Quads is probably going to go first. It's been a while. I don't know if they're going to change up the order, but whoever goes first, I'll have 25 seconds on the clock. Their time will begin when I finish reading the first question. If they can't think of a response, they will say pass, and we'll come back to it at the end. Who is actually going first?
Harm, you want me to go back going first?
Whatever you prefer.
Well, you crushed it going first. You go first.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah,
All right.
you go first. Okay.
All right, Quads, I'll need you to mute up, take those AirPods out, and we'll wave you back in when Harmon has completed his round. All right, Harm, I reminded you there of the rules. I'm back in the producer's chair. You'll have the timer on screen again, not Quads' phone going off in the background where he accidentally sets 30 minutes instead of 30 seconds. So we're good. Your time will begin when I finish reading the first question. Are you ready, Harm?
Yeah, let's do it.
If the Abbotsford Canucks played a best-of-7 series against the Vancouver Canucks Game 82 roster from this past season, who would win the series and in how many games?
Vancouver in 5.
Who is the best Canucks free agent signing since 2020?
Best?
Best.
Kiefer Sherwood.
Who's the worst since 2020?
Ilya Mikheyev.
Name a retired goalie you hated seeing the Canucks play against in his prime.
Tim Thomas.
Name a beach in Greater Vancouver.
Kits. Alano.
You nailed it. Clutched it up at the end.
I was a little slow on that first one. I don't know how many points.
You can wave.
Sherwood was a decent recovery though.
You can wave Quads back in. I'll tally up your score.
How'd it go?
Started a little slow, but I feel like I recovered decently.
Is it an easy survey or what?
It's winnable. I think I probably gave you around, give or take, 100 points is what I'd guess.
Okay.
So I don't think I crushed it, but I think I did decent enough.
Harm, you actually did crush it. I need to listen back to one response. I'm pretty sure I know what you said, but you got the number one answers on all the other 4.
Oh wow!
So I'm gonna get buzzed a bunch. Damn it!
You're up to 140 points.
Oh, I'm about to choke. I'm about to choke.
139 points. I am going to mute up here to listen to that one response. But yeah,
I'm about to
Armin
choke.
did well.
I'm just announcing for everyone right now. There's no way I'm not choking this. If all of the number ones are gone and I need to get 60 points, it's just math. It's going to be hard to do. It's going to be hard to get those points. It's just simple math. It's not me. It's the game.
No, I think it's doable. Especially the last answer has so many possible answers that would get points that
we're good. I got it right there, Harm. So yes, you were at 139 points. You got all the number ones except for one question where you got the number 3. So Quads, I can tell you right now, if you get that last number 1, you're almost a lock to win. So don't put too much pressure on yourself here.
All right.
You're going to have 30 seconds on the clock. Your time will begin when I finish reading the first question. If you can't think of a response, say pass. We'll get back to it at the end.
Okay.
If you give one of Harm's responses, you will hear the buzzer, and I will ask you to try again. David Quadrelli, are you ready?
Yeah.
If the Abbotsford Canucks played a best-of-7 series against the Vancouver Canucks with their Game 82 roster, who would win and in how many games?
Vancouver in 6.
Who was the best Canucks free agent signing since 2020?
Sherwood.
Try again.
Oh, frick! Kevin Lankinen.
Who's the worst since 2020?
McKev.
Try again.
Are you serious? Pass.
Name a retired goalie you hated seeing the Canucks play against in his prime.
Tim Thomas.
Try again.
Jonathan Quick.
Name a beach in Greater Vancouver.
Pitts.
Try again.
English Bay. Holy smokes, man. You might have to go back in the pod and edit. I think I dropped an F-bomb under my breath, Jacob.
Yeah, I'll
Did I get buzzed on every answer? There's no answer.
The first one.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't
answer one.
Able to give, and the one you weren't able to give a response to was the one where Harmon didn't get the number one answer. So
okay, give me it again.
No.
Oh, come on.
You got buzzed, and I still let
time.
you give. You got
Whatever.
buzzed, and I still let you give another answer for the fourth question.
I feel
All
like you
right,
covered
all right.
well enough that I feel like we
We'll see.
crossed 200.
It's still possible. I'm gonna leave the door open.
All right, I have an answer for the one that I passed.
Well,
on.
we'll get to it in a couple here,
right.
and then you can let me.
I'm gonna
know.
write it in the chat so you guys know I'm not cheating.
Okay. I'll wait for that. But yeah, okay. So that would have been the number one answer.
Damn it.
Anyways,
This is so dumb. All right, let's go.
If the Abbey Canucks played best of 7 against the Vancouver Canucks, and I did specify their Game 82 roster for the Vancouver Canucks. We're not talking about like opening night roster.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Who would win the series and how many games? Harm, you got the number one answer, 39 points for Vancouver in 5. Quads, you got the number 3 answer for Vancouver in 6. A few people did say Abbotsford in 7. I think that's a little, a little optimistic, but the fact that it was even a thought that people had to have was fun. So,
how many points did I get there?
You got 17 points there.
Oh, that's pretty good. So we don't need that.
Solid.
Okay.
So you're at
you
the
got
156. Who is the best Canucks free agent signing since 2020? You guys both said Kiefer Sherwood. He was the number one answer. Quads, you pivoted to Kevin Lankinen. 13 points for the number 3 answer.
Solid.
The number 2 answer is the now departed Pius Suter.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
Lankinen was a good pick.
Lankinen
When you
was,
get buzzed like that was a good pick.
Yeah. Jake DeBrusk was number 4. Andre Kuzmenko, number 5. Dakota Joshua, number 6. Who's the worst Canucks free agent signing since 2020? Harm, you got Ilya Mikheyev. Quads, you said that as well. 16 points. You guys missed the number 1 answer of Vinny Desharnais with 39 points.
I said it though, so
that would have won it for you right now, Quads.
All right.
Number 2 answer was Tucker Poolman. Obviously, that one was tough with the injuries. He just really never played. It's hard to know what he could have been as a Vancouver Canuck. Yaroslav Halak and Danton Heinen tied for number 4. I don't know why people were saying Halak. I mean,
Halak is a bad pick.
He was here for a year. He was fine. The Canucks were really bad. I don't know about that one. There was also some interesting ones in there. As we mentioned that, Dakota Joshua was the number 6 answer for the best free agent signing. He also was popped up a few times in the worst free agent signing. Same with Kuzmenko, popped up in both lists, which is interesting. All right, name a retired goalie you hated seeing the Canucks play against in his prime. You guys both said Tim Thomas. That was the number 1 answer with 25 points. Quads, you pivoted to the number 3 answer, but only 8 points for Jonathan Quick there.
Was Corey Crawford number 2?
No, Corey Crawford was tied for number 6 with Mike Vernon, throwing it back to the 90s. Number 2 was Mika Kiprusoff, who actually was my pick as well. Kiprusoff was a Canuck killer, man. He was so good against Vancouver.
Good pick.
Actually tied for number 3 with Quick was Carey Price, who technically isn't retired yet, but he hasn't played in.
So how many points away are we?
You need 23 points for this last question here. Name a beach in Greater Vancouver.
It's going to be close.
You guys both said Kitsilano. That was the number 1 answer. That was only worth 28 points, though. So to get 23 points, I can tell you this. The number 2 answer would do it for you.
Oh, good.
Quads, you said English Bay. That was the number 4 answer, only 8 points.
We win anyway because I had Desharnais. But I got buzzed on every answer. The clock should stop when I get buzzed. That's what I think.
That's not how it works.
All right.
The number 2 answer was Wreck Beach. And for those of you who are not from BC, that's, shall we say, the clothing optional beach.
I will say this. I said I was going to choke. I don't think I choked. I'm really happy with that performance. I think that
Quads-
was a bang-up
Quads, you got
performance.
46 points.
That's a bang-up performance. I got buzzed on every answer. Like, you know what? That's tough. Got buzzed on every single
Bang up
answer.
performance, the same way that the Canucks management thought they did a bang up job building the blue line last offseason.
Yeah.
No, not like that, Harm. Not like that. No, I did good. I did good. New surveys out. Put some good answers in, please. That one is out.
Look, it was a tough spot for you, but you could have done it. You could have done it.
Hey, look, the
I did do
Desharnais
it.
one.
I had
the Desharnais
Desharnais.
one would have won it. I don't know what to say, Quads. That was
No. Clock should stop. Clock should stop when you get buzzed. Anyways, doesn't matter. Let's go. Let's get to anyone else, which is brought to you by our friends at the Vancouver Canadians. Don't be like Jacob and I and miss your chance on heading down to that. Last night, Jacob texted me. Lovely text to receive. He said, "Hey, do you and your fiance want to go out for a Canadians game with me and my wife?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely we would. That'd be so fun. It's a fireworks night tonight at the Nat." And I responded to Jacob and said, "Absolutely. But are there any seats available?" And then that's when we figured out that this game is sold out. Do not miss your chance to get onto the Nat. Summer's here. Good times are available for you at the Nat. Don't miss your chance. They're heading out on the road this week, but I'm going to close it out here with a really fun fireworks night tonight. So if you're lucky enough to have a ticket to it, make sure you go enjoy it on Jacob and I's behalf, because we wanted to go, but we couldn't make it. So make sure you get your tickets. Call 604-872-5232 or check out CanadiansBaseball.com. All right, I got anyone else. Does anyone else think I did a great job in Family Feud, or is it just me?
No, it's
I
just
think
you.
it's just you.
Hold on. Let's see.
We
Holy.
had Karin bringing back the Fumbelina comment. It's
Oh,
been a while
whatever.
since we've seen that.
Erwin Aquino said moral victory.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's a
Rico-
moral victory.
Couchos Rico said if you went first, it would have been okay. Exactly.
Actually, you know what? I think so. I feel like Harm might have been able to pivot and get that Desharnais answer if he was going second. Because obviously, like, Harmon would have been buzzed 4 times as well. You guys had the same answers. And
I'm not going to say you did it poorly. It was average. It was an average performance, which is fine. I'm not going to say you fumbled it.
We have a request for baseball talk for anyone else, so I'll save that for the end. It's a good one from Scott, actually. So we'll get to it at the end. This was actually, excuse me. There's some good stuff in the chat here that I wanted to get to. Where'd it go? All I see is Quads choked. Oh yeah, Dev Camp talk. People wanted Dev Camp talk. Where's my notes? I took note that Dev Camp, and I wanted to. I can't find them, but I remember what I saw. Medvedev, guys, the next Sergei Bobrovsky. I said it the day it happened, but really like what I see from Medvedev. He moves really well. He's got really good length. Like, his arms are really long. I made the joke that his knuckles are dragging along the ground when he walks, but he's got really, really long limbs. And then someone pointed out to me that he had the longest wingspan of anyone in this draft class at the NHL Combine when they measure your wingspan. What else was there? Yeah, likes Medvedev a lot, moves around the crease really nicely, a lot of raw tools that they're going to be able to work with. And he's already started that Marco Tereni's Ian Clark program. I saw them showing him some different stuff with post play, his stances, all that sort of stuff. I already know they're getting to him, so we'll see that. Also caught up with Ty Young. I like talking to him, and he had a really solid season last year in the ECHL, and it was funny because, like, I've talked to Ty Young every dev camp, every training camp since he got drafted, and it's kind of a running joke that I am the Ty Young beat reporter. Like, usually he's not a very heavily requested player, especially at training camps when he's like the 4th goaltender or 5th goaltender on the depth chart. But I've talked to Ty Young a lot. Was chatting with him and just said, like, look, man, like, last year at this time, you and I were talking at training camp. We were talking about how he didn't know where he was going to play. He couldn't get a single WHL team to take him. And then he goes pro instead, puts up a 926 in the ECHL. I have to say, WHL teams, what are you doing? Why can't you take? And I know there's a lot of different stuff goes into this. And Jacob, maybe you want to touch on this about, we talk about Canadian goaltenders, the lack of development of Canadian goaltenders and everything. But a 20-year-old goaltender who puts up a 926 in the ECHL, there's nowhere in the WHL for that kid to play. I just thought that was hilarious. And I was talking about not having a place to play with Ty last last week when I was earlier this week, when I was at Dev Camp, we were talking about how a year ago didn't know where he was going to play. Then he goes on to have that remarkable season that he had 904 through 11 AHL games and then a 926 through 22 ECHL games as well. Name dropped by Patrick Allvin, which I did ask him about, and he was very humble about it. But he did say, like, yeah, I wasn't expecting that, but I'm working hard and all that good stuff. But did you have anything you want to add on Ty Young and just goaltending in the dub?
Do you think?
I was just going to say that whole thing just seems so odd to me because, in 23-24, yes, Joshua Ravensbergen, who became a first-round pick, came up and kind of started to take the crease from Ty, but like Ty Young's numbers in that 24 season were still quite good. And he had a 917 and 4 playoff games. Like, yes, he quote unquote, lost the crease, but he was still a very good goalie on the best team in the WHL that year. I think the fact that there was the uncertainty, I think was more so WHL teams were just worried that if they got him, he might turn pro during the season, right? Like the Canucks would just be like, hey, we need you in Kalamazoo now, or we need you in Abbotsford now. That's the only thing I could possibly think of without digging in and actually asking around WHL circles, because he was legitimately looked at as, if he's back in the dub, he's probably a top 2 or 3 goalie in the entire league. And then he goes to the ECHL and ends up being one of the top goalies at that level. So big missed opportunity for some of those dub teams who probably could have traded some draft picks over to Prince George to land a guy who would have helped them really make a playoff push.
Do you think, Quad, that Ty Young is full-time Abbotsford next year?
Yes.
Because they still have, how do you think it'll work? Do you think they'll carry 3 goalies full-time with Tolopilo, Patera, and Young, assuming Patera is still alive?
Alive. They haven't been afraid to do that in the past. That's what I'll say about that. They haven't been afraid to do it in the past. We saw it with Spencer Martin, Michael DiPietro, Archer Shelovs. At that time, Ty Young's going to get the chance. They're not going to send him back to the ECHL. Ty Young is going to play in the A, and I'm not even saying this based on any inside knowledge. It's just that Patrick Allvin basically said that when he talked about, we have really good young goaltenders in the organization. Another guy who's going to turn pro, already turned pro, Aku Koskenvo, like, he needs a place to play. He's going to the ECHL next year. He's a step behind Ty Young. Wasn't he drafted after Ty? No, he was drafted before Ty. He's a step behind Ty. Ty is further along in his development than Aku is, even though Aku is a little bit older. Aku's going to play in the ECHL. He needs that experience that Ty got last year. He's going to play in the ECHL, I would think. And Ty Young is going to be the guy that plays in the AHL last year. I'm sorry, but and there's no disrespect to Aku, another goaltender I really like, but he didn't get name dropped by Patrick Allvin. I don't think Patrick Allvin name drops Ty Young and then sends him to the ECHL and brings in Aku. They're going to find a place for Ty to play in the AHL. He's going to play AHL games next year. Like that's where he's going to play most of his season. And that's where he should play. Like, I don't think he has anything left to prove at the ECHL level. He did well in the starts for Abbotsford. Put it this way, Harm. Ty Young put up a 904 save percentage in 11 AHL games last year. The regular season save percentage of Archer Shelovs, who, won the Calder Cup for them, was a 908. Before that, like when Shelovs was Ty's age, right? When he was 20 years old, like, we're talking save percentages that start with an 8 sometimes. We're talking about a 909. These save percentages aren't super high. I think it was really impressive what Ty Young did this year. And I think it was kind of something we didn't really talk about enough during the year. I mean, ECHL goaltender. Maybe there are people who think you're already talking about it too much, but I think to answer your question in a really long way, and I apologize for taking so long to answer it. Yes, he is absolutely going to play AHL games next year.
Yeah, I mean, he exceeded expectations. I thought turning pro, the jump from junior to pro, isn't just significant for skaters. It's a whole different world for goaltenders. And I would have anticipated, like, for him to be above 900 in the A, even if it's just 11 games, is really impressive, because usually going from the dub to AHL, you get lit up. And then the games that he played in the ECHL, I mean, 926, that's pretty dominant.
Absolutely. Was there anything else? Oh yeah, Dev Camp. I want to say Wilson Bjork. That kid's got a shot. Braden Coots' shot has a really sneaky release on it. Like, he has that quick release that you you talk about, oh, how hard can you shoot? It's really how quickly can you shoot? How deceptive is your release? Braden Coots has a really deceptive release, and Wilson Bjork is just a sharpshooter from what I saw at camp. So that's my report. Dave Hall's there today. We'll have him on probably next week to chat some prospects and chat about Dev Camp and what he saw today. But I wanted to make sure I mentioned those four things: 2 goaltenders, 2 forwards.
Nice.
All right. Let's get to. Yeah, this is an interesting one. This is from Dylan McDonald. I wonder how Vilmer Ulrichsen looks. I remember him having a good camp last year. I probably spelled his name wrong. No, you actually spelled it right. You actually spelled it correctly. He did have a good camp. Remember that fight he had in the preseason? That was electric. I'm hoping for big things from Vilmer Ulrichsen. That's another guy that it looks like a guy that at least is going to play AHL games, which, when you mine AHL players of the 4th round, hey, that's pretty solid. That's pretty good. Ulrichsen's going to be a guy that I'm really interested to watch. This year, obviously at camp, he was towering over everybody, but a guy I really want to watch, see the development of this year, and see how he looks in the preseason as well.
Yeah, he was a standout at camp. He's raw. He's a
project, obviously, but the size that he has and how he's just bowling guys over physically, and he looked a lot less awkward and clunky than the first time we saw him. Right, there is still an element of that, but I remember the first time watching him play. I can't remember if it was Young Stars or somewhere else, but my first viewing of Ulrichsen was, all right, this kid's good and he's a giant, but he looks awkward at that height and at that size, and the puck skills and the speed. Like, is the rest of his game going to be able to round out? And for Ulrichsen, it wasn't just training camp, but at Young Stars, I think it was that he really stood out there too. So looked a little less clunky and awkward, and we'll see. He's an intriguing project. Absolutely.
I did want to mention this about Dev Camp as well. The Canucks posted the video. It's such good content. A+ to the Canucks social team. It's such good content. This is me before the gross grind. This is me after the gross grind. Braden Coots appears to be the first Canucks prospect ever to beat the Sedins on the gross grind. Now, the Canucks did mention in the post that there was a 10-minute head start. So that is very funny. I hope that was something that was told to the players of, hey, just so you know, no one's ever beat the Sedins on the gross grind of our prospects. They're in their 40s now. We're going to release them 10 minutes later than you. Yes, I use the word release. These guys get a 10-minute head start on the Sedins, and then the Sedins go run after them and caught up to them. It looks like Braden Coots. The video, it was like a photo finish, but I think Coots had it in the end. I believe it was Daniel that he beat. I think Daniel's the one with the better time on the grind, right? Do either of you know the answer to that?
Top of my head.
Okay, I think Daniel has the faster time out of him and Henrik, but I'm sure I'll get corrected on that if I'm wrong about that. But I'm pretty sure it was Daniel in the video as well. It's kind of grainy and they're running, so it was hard to tell.
And we should mention, because a lot of our listeners are not from Vancouver. Like, the gross grind is essentially you're running up the side of a mountain, and the Sedins do this hike quite frequently. And as Quads mentioned, these Canucks prospects, and it's been, how many years have they done? I guess even dating back to when the Sedins first retired and took their player development role. So it's been a handful of years now, and no prospect has ever beaten the Sedins, even with that head start, which I believe they've done every time as well. It's pretty impressive. And you don't need us to tell you how athletic the Sedin twins are. We all know that. But
so the gross grind, 2.5 kilometer trail, elevation gain of 800 meters. It is a lot of stairs, and it is really tough. So I Googled it. The average time to complete the grind is 2 to 2.5 hours. My goal for the year, and I think I talked about this in December when we did New Year's resolutions, my goal is to do the grind in under an hour. That might be really, really bold. No, listen. I've been training. My cardio is pretty good now. Like, I do the Coquitlam crunch now a lot. And shout out to whatever listener. I was doing it I was doing it the other day. I think yesterday, anyways, wherever it was. I was doing the crunch with my fiance, and she was behind me, And she came up to me after and was like, hey, you definitely just got recognized by someone, but the person didn't say anything. So shout out to whatever listener saw me doing the crunch and didn't say anything, because I was booking it. And I think I ran past the person as they were running down. He was wearing a Canucks hat, but he apparently did a big double take and was looking in my direction. So shout out to whatever listener that was. Appreciate you. But yeah, I've been crunching quite a bit, because the crunch is basically like, no matter where you live, like if you live in Burnaby, you live in Vancouver, like Coquitlam crunch is a good warm up for the grind, I think.
Yeah, I've actually never done the gross grind, despite living here my whole life. Never.
Have you done the crunch or no?
No.
Okay. Well, I never did the crunch until this year, and I mean, I could have made the trek from Burnaby, but I didn't. And then the grind I've never done either. So my goal is to do it in under an hour this year. We'll see if it happens. I think I said it before, but yeah, like I think the problem is that it's taking like pro athletes like are setting the goal of under an hour. But I think like the Seniors do it in 37, don't they? Or something like that, or 40. Hold on.
I don't know their times off the top of my head like that.
So anyways, what I'm saying is that my cardio has gotten better. Yeah, fastest grind time of all time is 23 minutes 48 seconds. That's crazy.
That is wild.
That's actually wild. Yeah, like anyways, I'm not looking to do that. I think under an hour is a really, really, really big goal, but I will say this. Before, like I
Bedard apparently did it in 37 minutes.
Yeah, see, there you go. I can do under an hour. Like I'm in pretty good shape. Like I told you how bad my cardio was, but you start doing MMA, you start doing runs and stuff. I'm in pretty good shape. Not to brag, but my cardio is a lot better than it was before. Like I couldn't even like jog before. Like if I jogged, I was out of breath. So I'm in pretty good shape now, and I'm working on it. So goal is by the end of the year, get done on the
Jacob, write that down
on the grind. Yeah, Jacob, write that down. Gross grind under an hour. That is the goal. But yeah, I don't know. Anyways, all right. Did you have anything else? Speaking of athletics and being in great shape, any pickleball updates this week?
No. Today's a soccer day. I got a couple soccer games. So
do you got your dry land for pickleball coming up?
Like, what do you mean dry land?
So dry land in hockey is like, the team, like, the team will do a dry land exercise. Like you always see them running around the track or whatever.
Yeah. No. No, I told you I won once. Just like, and it was such a like you could already put me in the Hall of Fame. It was what, like 23-3 in the regular season. I need more of a challenge. So yeah, no, I'm pivoting. I rotate sports like all the time. I'll play something for like 3 to 6 months, and then move on to something else, and then cycle back onto it. I don't stick to one sport forever.
Web.3 said this: I thought Quads was a baseball player. Where did the cardio go? That is exactly the point. All I did was play baseball. That's why I don't have any cardio. You don't need cardio to play baseball. You don't. Like, I'm sorry, you just don't. So anyways, that's your answer. I played baseball all my life, and you didn't need cardio for that. Although I will say, whenever I was playing hockey, ball hockey, wherever I was playing, my cardio was pretty good at that time, but I was a kid. Like I was a kid. In my adult life, baseball's really all I play. So, and I mean, golf, I'm not going to do that. But now I've picked up new stuff, like I've said. And I'm getting better. But yeah, baseball, you don't need cardio to play baseball.
One last thing on the gross grind. Daniel Sedin once did it 11 times in a row, and his slowest time of the 11 was 64 minutes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Like, if that's the case, I know Daniel Sedin's a pro athlete and that he's dusting all these kids that obviously have better cardio than I do. But if he could do it 11 times and his slowest is 64 minutes, I'm sorry. If I come in at like 70 minutes, I'll be like, oh, okay, maybe next year. But I don't think it's a crazy goal to have to do it in under an hour. And I made this goal when I was in horrible shape too. Like, couldn't jog. I was like, no, I'm going to do it in under an hour.
You're talking a big game now. Now you better live up to it.
I'll do it. I'm gonna do it, and I'll be honest. If like I said, if I come in at like 65 minutes, I'll tell everyone I'll have my card. Isn't there a card that proves how long it took you? I'll do it. Anyways, all right. Anything else? And someone's asking, was that prime Sedin's or current? I'm pretty sure that was like a year or two ago, wasn't it, Jacob? The 11 times thing. lost
That was
it.
recent. That was a couple years ago.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was just a couple years ago. Yeah, it was post-retirement. Okay, let's go to Dylan McDonald is a good one. We'll close it on this. He said, it's been right under our nose the whole time. Sign Henrik for 2C. Henrik Sedin as the second line center. I've always had that question of like, what if they played another year or two? Like, what if those guys played? Because they retired right before Elias Pettersson arrived in Vancouver, right? You know, what would those guys look like with Quinn Hughes working with them as well on the power play? Yeah, it's a nice one. Yeah, here we go. Callie Canuck said, my wife and brother-in-law did it in 50 minutes. Quad, you should be able to break 60. Thank you. I think I'm pretty sure I'll be able to break 60. Like I
believe in you. I believe in you.
Yeah. Like, you know, I'll tell you more off air, but like I said, like MMA, jiu-jitsu, that is really tough on cardio. That builds really strong cardio, and I've been doing that for a while now. So I've been getting better. All right. Anything else, Harm?
No.
Okay, let's get to our Bet365 bet of the day. What's going on in the world of baseball today? All right. The Toronto Blue Jays are first in the AL East. And someone brought it up in the chat. What's your reaction to the Jays being first in the AL East? This is great. This is great news. This is awesome. I hope the Jays finish first in the AL East. That would be great. That would be
I think people think
awesome.
You hate the Jays, Quads. You don't hate the Blue Jays. You're a Mariners fan, but you don't hate the Jays.
No, of course not. No, I like the Jays. I hope they do well. I would rather see the Jays win the AL East than the Yankees. And like, I don't hate the Yankees either. I just think it would be great. It would be great to see the Jays win the division in a year where really, I don't think anyone, definitely not me, had them being as competitive as they've been lately. So I'm going with that. Let's get to our bet of the day. Tonight, Chris Bassett is on the mound for the Jays, and we're betting on him dicing up them New York Yankees. You can get Chris Bassett over 5.5 total strikeouts at -120 odds over at Bet365, where your bet is never ordinary. Download the app and get it on the game. Use the code NATION Bet365. Must be 19 plus to play. If you choose to play, please play responsibly. All right, we'll wrap it up there for my co-host Harmon Dial and our technical producer Jacob Lazar. My name is Dave Woodrelli. Thanks so much for the episode of Canucks Conversation.
Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.